For a long time, there's been a mystery in psychedelic research. Researchers would observe and study the experiences that LSD was bringing forth for people and arrive at different, even competing accounts of what exactly LSD was doing. Because the experiences themselves were so different. LSD must be a hallucinogen because it is clearly producing hallucinations. No, I see it manifesting consciousness because it's a psychedelic. Oh, but what I'm observing tells me it's a mystico-mimetic, and so on. Focusing only on the properties of the agent led to confusion, because the same drug could create or do away with anxiety. It could enhance or diminish the quality of life, depending on how it was used. This last phrase is key to resolving the mystery around this agent called LSD. Researchers are coming to a shared understanding of how it can be that one person's LSD trip feels disruptive while another's is mystical and transformative. It's not that LSD itself is different. In these different experiences, it's that the setting in which someone embarks on their trip is different, like what surrounds them, or who's keeping them company. And it's not just the setting, but also the mindset that they are bringing to the trip. Their expectations, their feelings, their subjective selves.
I'm Ido Hartogsohn, and I teach at the graduate program for Science and Technology Studies at Bar-Ilan University.
And I'm Jaarsma, a philosopher in Calgary, Canada. Ido has been tracing this turn in psychedelic research in his articles and his new book from MIT Press. Ido sums it up with a phrase that at one point was infamously linked to LSD. The phrase is set and setting.
Setting is the whole contextual tapestry that exists around an experience, not even just with psychedelics, but the term arose around psychedelics because the context, the psychological aspects, like what are my expectations or intentions from this experience, and the environmental, that's the setting, the where am I at, who I'm with, what does my culture tell me about these experiences. All of these things are super important with psychedelics because psychedelics augment and amplify, as you said, the experience. So if the setting are good, then I might have this really amazing experience that really highlights the beauty and the serenity and all of that. But if something is not quite right, then things can go wrong.
What used to be a mystery is now making compelling sense. Set and setting each play a crucial role in how a person experiences their psychedelic trip. Ido's research helps us understand what these words actually refer to. Set can include how someone prepares for the experience, even in terms of their personality and their intentions. Setting can involve the sonic and the spatial aspects of where the trip is taking place. To understand this even further, Ido brings another field into the conversation: placebo studies. This is one of the real innovations of Ido's work, bringing psychedelic and placebo research together. Interestingly, it helps us notice another mystery, one that I've been studying myself for years, together with my collaborator Suze Burkhout, a psychiatrist from the University of Toronto. Here's how we could put the mystery. How can someone visit a doctor's office, see the diplomas on the wall and the convincing white lab coat worn by the doctor, receive a diagnosis, and then get palpably better, whatever that might mean for them and their situation? There's a classic claim in placebo research that starts to point to an answer to this mystery. Here's how it goes. Diagnosis is treatment. For example, receiving a prescription can draw out a placebo effect. But Ido's work on set and setting lets us get more specific and tangible about what this classic claim means in terms of different kinds of lived experiences, and it connects us more closely to the mystery of treatment, which is really the mystery of placebos. Also, because you also work on placebo studies, as soon as we start thinking about set and setting in relation to placebos, we need to remember then how biocultural we are. So a placebo effect in Germany is not a placebo effect in Canada or in Israel.
Placebo to me is kind of a neighbor phenomenon or a kin phenomenon to that of set and setting. And really, they're about the same thing in a way, because they're both about the extra pharmacological, all the ways that the thing that is not the drug or not the treatment per se actually have a great effect, and sometimes a crucial effect that's sometimes even more crucial than the agent itself. It can go in the direction of spirituality, of creativity, of mind-body connection, of nature-relatedness, so many different directions. And so I think bringing these two subjects together can really shed interesting light on one another.
Do you remember the confusion or contradictions that used to preoccupy researchers who were studying LSD? We find something similar in placebo studies. In publications, a placebo might be defined as a meaning response, or as something that could be tracked by neuroimaging, or the researcher might focus directly on the form that the treatment takes, like a sugar pill or a prescription itself. Here, let me help you by offering you an open label placebo. These are tensions across the literature. It's making some researchers want to drop the word placebo completely, and it's making some wish we could just eradicate the placebo effect altogether.
Set and setting, in a way, is like a placebo without the guilt. In the placebo world, there's always this thinking of, we must minimize or obliterate, eradicate the placebo. In set and setting, you kind of look at it and you say, okay, I want to take that thing, that's a good thing, and I want to optimize it and build on it.
Here's what Ido's work has uncovered. The story of psychedelic research is also the story of scientists, clinicians, and therapists. This means that it's also the story of experimental protocols, designs of clinical research trials, and the interests and affects and relationships that are all part of how science works. Set and setting are not just about patients and users. They're also about researchers and research itself. Work helps us think about how researchers ourselves, we are also always entangled in set and setting in the work as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the evolution, development of the field of psychedelic therapy and research was shaped at every point on the way by the set and setting, by the psychiatric and psychological theories, by the broader social cultural trends, and so on and so forth. How psychedelics both shaped the social cultural terrain and got shaped by it at the same time. Now, I think that today the subject of set and setting is also becoming ever more crucial for psychedelic research, and it's booming at the moment. And we have new questions coming up, like what happens to psychedelic therapy when it's available to broader populations that did not participate in studies in the past, or how the entrance of money and for-profit company, how that shapes the setting for patients, and what kind of implications that has for the trajectory of psychedelic research in the future. So really, you have this object of scientific study that's, on the one hand, it's an object with a whole history and of development and rise and fall and rise.
We're seeing a similar story emerge in placebo studies. Charlotte Blees, a philosopher and expert placebo researcher, describes an emerging understanding of placebos. Instead of the mystery of placebos, saying, if it's inert, how could it produce an effect? Instead of this mystery, this understanding focuses on the interactions between bodies and minds, between patients and physicians, between drugs and treatment. Enthusiasm is a placebo, so is interest and attention. A brand name on a pill is also a placebo, in contrast to a generic pill. Just as Ido's work makes clear, all of the ingredients that go into set and setting are crucial to placebos as well as to psychedelics.
I talk about psychedelics as a psychedelic technology or a suggestible technology. The word psychedelic means mind manifesting, right? Psyche, mind, and telos. So mind manifesting or mind revealing, the LSD molecule stays the same, but it happens within the mind of the user. So in that sense, the technology reinvents itself or remanifests itself each time it's being used in relation to what to the construction that's going on in the user's mind. That's also, of course, constructed itself by the broader social cultural context is a whole new creation into the world.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a dynamic creation.
Creating the right setting is, in a sense, beyond the question of psychedelics. It's not just about creating the right set and setting for a psychedelic trip. It's about creating the right set and setting for one's life. And I think psychedelics, in this way of augmenting our perception of the world, the acuteness of impressions, they can, in many times, point the direction to alterations that might be meaningful and beneficial in the setting. And that's why people very often have these ideas on or insights in psychedelic experiences. Oh, I should move out of that place. Oh, I should change this relationship. This is not working. We should try something else. I should stop smoking. All these things are kind of like setting, the life media that shapes your life. So I think there's a very strong connection there, which I view as one of the major but often unexamined or unrecognized benefits of psychedelics.
You're making me think about your shift in the book from the science of set and setting to the art of set and setting, because I think the word art is a way to think about the immersive, first-person, process-based experience, relationship to experience.
I'm very happy that it's part of the book, because it does point, to my mind, to a really important direction that this whole line of thinking leads to. I'd really like to see the work on sense setting continuing and developing. Also a deeper understanding or appreciation of the role of sense setting by researchers, by therapists, and an honest kind of conversation about our role as researchers and therapists, about the role of the social cultural context, and about the many philosophical and ethical questions that remain to be asked in this field.
What we hope for, what we expect and anticipate, these are essential components of any treatment. We can never eradicate the placebo effect, because placebos are part of what make treatments work. But we also can't make the placebo effect happen on command. There is no mechanism that can be standardized or generalized that would make this happen. This is the insight in psychedelic research that Ido's work really helps to foreground. I asked Ido about his own hopes, specifically in terms of where he hopes psychedelic research itself might develop.
It's that we know how to celebrate the plurality of sense setting of psychedelics, and not scorn, judge, or condemn ways of experiencing these agents with their very multifaceted potential, but appreciate these and learn to explore and bring them to perfection. That I think psychedelics have so much to contribute than we even account for at the moment.
diagnosis is treatment. Set and setting are inextricable from a drug trip. These claims are instructive, but they remain in the abstract world of generalizations if they're not anchored in the concrete lived experiences of people, specific people.
I think in terms of sense setting, the assumption usually is that, if you have, a quiet room or soft lighting, then this will be universally beneficial. But also, as you say, I know, so maybe some people have an aversion to soft lights, but apart from that, this kind of setting in which a lot of psychedelic research is happening, that has certain beliefs and certain aspects of its worldview, this might be not optimal for other people. I mean, for other people, it might become nauseating. In a psychedelic experience, sometimes being very intimate, it can be amazing, but if intimacy changes, something about you or the relationship changes, and it can become pressing or it can become difficult, then it really shifts and it really changes directions.
You use the word reflexive at the end of your book. So to pay attention to how the feedback loops help prime us and frame our experiences, and so education and learning becomes really crucial there. But at the same time, we can't predict feedback loops completely. We can't control them.
Realizing that really it's, as we said, it's an art and science. So it's a science, but it's also an art, and there's always room for the uniqueness of each situation, and it's not predictable in 100% way. It's not a utopia of certainty, so we have to keep that in mind.
I love that. It's not a utopia of certainty. That's lovely.
Psychedelics have gone from being banned to generating new experiments, which in turn are producing hugely promising new treatments. Treatments for anxiety, for depression, and, as Ido was suggesting, for existential transformation. The New York Times recently declared, hallucinogens have doctors tuning in again. Actually, we can all tune in, as users or patients or interested observers. Even better, we can attune ourselves to our mindsets, to our surroundings. As Ido puts it, there's an art as well as a science when it comes to psychedelics.